I also want to turn to the other big news out of today. Steve Bannon, who's still awaiting his criminal trial for defying this same committee, is back in court today, lost a bid to try to get the case dismissed, a judge rejecting that. Bannon would go on trial then next month. Outside the court today, he vows to basically try to abuse government power and put politicians that he opposes on trial in the future if Republicans win back government.
I look forward to having Nancy Pelosi and little Jamie Raskin and Shifty Schiff in here at trial answering questions.
There you go, the nicknames, the ad hominem attacks, but it's not just against sort of the opposing party. Bannon brutally blasting Bill Barr for testifying against Trump. The hearings show, however, that most top aides did cooperate, from Jared Kushner and Ivanka as family to Rudy Giuliani, who was with Trump to the very end as a loyalist. And that, in a very real way, puts Bannon and also Mr. Navarro in a tougher spot at their upcoming trials, because their defense has to focus on basically attacking the committee's validity or claiming they have some special privilege, which means they wouldn't have to testify or at least wouldn't be indicted for it, be convicted for it. Both those claims are severely undermined by other loyal Trump aides who cooperated, apparently because the committee is valid and apparently because they could do so without violating privilege. Given that legal terrain, I go back to you again, Nick, your response.
Well, I think it's pretty self-evident. The judge in this particular case found that the committee was valid. He basically held that the committee was properly constituted, that they had the right to subpoena Bannon, and that it was done properly with a vote of the full House. Essentially, the judge said that what the committee did was absolutely legally correct. Secondly, the idea that there was any kind of privilege, the judge blew that out of the water, too. Bannon tried to claim that he was told by one of Trump's lawyers that he didn't have to testify and he shouldn't testify. But there was no real privilege here. Bannon was not a government employee. He was not covered by executive privilege. Executive privilege doesn't cover an insurrection or any kind of criminal activity. I mean, his defense is a big zero goose egg. There's nothing to it. And the idea that he's going to try and take members of Congress and put them on trial at his trial, he is so mistaken, and he's going to be so sorely misled by the time he gets there. He has no defense whatsoever, which is why this case was approved by the Department of Justice. This is absolutely a slam dunk.
And Libby, your view here as we go from court to the court of public opinion, because a couple weeks ago, the resonance of many of these issues, the cases, Mr. Navarro and Mr. Bannon's situation, as well as the hearing, the prep for these hearings, was really, at best I could observe in measurable ways, confined to people who actually really regularly pay attention to this stuff. Professionals, people involved, and people who are really interested in the news, and shout out to people interested in the news. But as a practical matter, a lot of other people are busy with inflation and post-COVID life and the rest of everything. It wasn't always top of mind. It seems that, and I want your analysis of, is there a connection between what's happening in the Bannon case and the sort of awareness of the validity? I'm not saying the committee gets everything right. People will make up their minds. But the validity of this committee in court, repeatedly upheld, combined with 30 million plus Americans actually seeing it do its work and seeing that it looks, unlike so many other things in D.C., it looks pretty serious, pretty factual, and the Republicans who are involved seem to be there to participate rather than to destroy.
Well, let's hope, Ari, that people can care about inflation and their health and wellness and that of their family, and also care about saving democracy, because part of what the committee is doing here is figuring out how to avoid this sort of a crisis from ever happening again. The important thing, and you laid this out so well about how the judge didn't find validity in Bannon's arguments, is this is a Trump-appointed judge, and still he said, no, your arguments hold no weight, Steve Bannon, and the committee is valid. Republicans in the House are they're doing all these like tweets and distraction and noise, almost in a childish way, frankly, when the committee's having these hearings. But there are 2 Republicans on this committee, and Kevin McCarthy had a chance to seat members on this committee. He chose not to. The committee went ahead and said, this is the work we're going to do. Agree with it or not, appreciate their findings or not. There are 2 Republicans, there are 7 Democrats, and what's unique about this committee is they can be singularly focused on a common goal rather than seeing the normal tearing apart on a committee that tends to happen along partisan lines. They may have their disagreements about what the end result should be, but they are trying to have these focused hearings where they're getting to the bottom of things. And, Steve Bannon can't stand in the way of the committee's process, and it doesn't look like he can stand in the way of his own trial. He's supposed to go on trial next month.
Right. And then the public can see that. The DOJ says they're watching, and people can draw their conclusions. The point about McCarthy is one we've covered. This may be one of the greatest legislative, governing, and strategic blunders of the modern era. Every time you see McCarthy or anyone on that Team MAGA part, doing interviews, doing press conferences, standing outside the committee room, you have to remember, they actually silenced themselves and boycotted themselves and sort of canceled themselves out of being in that room. Whether that makes sense and looks good for them and allows them to be participants as the hearings stack up, only they can decide that call. Libby and Nick, thank you both for kicking us off tonight.